All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Neil Twat. Neil, welcome. So awesome
Hello.
to have
Hello,
you
hello.
here.
Good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, so it's been a while since we spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a really surreal experience for me right now because we're 3 years in to hosting the $1 Million Relationship
Wow.
Podcast. And you were interview number one
Woohoo.
when we launched this podcast.
Careful now. I have to be able
And
to get out of my office. I don't want my head to be too big. I'll be able to
you
walk out
know,
the door here.
I still remember that conversation. And I still remember you making the comment during
Hmm.
that interview that, well, Kev, I'm just gonna put on my parachute and we'll just hop out this plane together. And
That's a
that we
perfectly good
did.
airplane. We jumped anyway. So here we
Yes,
are,
we
3 years
did.
later. Look at
And
that.
I look back at the last 3 years
Mm-hmm.
and what has transpired that
Yeah.
we have right now have released 301 episodes. That's
Woohoo.
301 pretty phenomenal conversations that I've got to have with some
That's
pretty
amazing.
amazing entrepreneurs who are making such a powerful impact in this world and stuff.
More than 100 episodes
And
a year. That's impressive.
and uh and I shared with you before we hit the record button, hosting this podcast has been hands down the most rewarding and impactful thing I have done in my 30 years as an entrepreneur. And it
Amazing.
just keeps getting better and better, man.
That's amazing.
and
I love it.
and even like I shared with you, I got to interview Chris Dennert for the podcast earlier this morning. And now I'm interviewing you this afternoon.
Well, all right.
Uh,
Hi,
and
Chris.
small
If you're
world that,
listening to this, haven't talked to you in a while.
yeah, that you guys know each other too.
I do. I need to follow up with Chris and say hi. I haven't talked to him in a while.
He's doing some pretty awesome stuff, man.
Good. Well, he's a pretty awesome guy, so
and
I wouldn't
uh,
expect any less.
and uh, and so now, yeah, 300 episodes into this,
Wow.
and that's there's been a lot of water under the bridge for both you and I over the last three
Yeah, it
years.
wouldn't take that much in 3 years, but dang, uh,
Yeah,
3 years
yeah,
seems to have, boy, gone extremely fast. Number one, and number two, a lot of change. I think for both of us in three
yeah,
years.
for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. So why don't we start
Hmm.
by I just want to turn it over to you so that we can set a little bit of context for the listeners, and so that they kind of because what I have figured out is episode 54. I'll never forget because I was with Roy Morjan,
Hmm.
and Roy pointed out to me when he came on because he had listened to like three podcast interviews before he came on to be a guest, and he was like, Kev, man, this is a really unique thing you're doing here. And man, for a guy like you, who's the connector and conduit of trust for entrepreneurs in your world, what a powerful tool this podcast must be for you. And I'm like, what do you mean, Roy? And he's like, well, gosh, when you're making these introductions, now, as you do these interviews, you can share so if you want to connect somebody with Neil, and now you're making that introduction, you get to say, oh, and by the way, I'm connecting with Neil, and here's why. But I also interviewed him for the podcast, and go check out that interview because it's really going to give you a good idea of what Neil's all about and who he really is, and it's just going to make your guys' conversation that much more valuable when you guys connect.
Your brain is so hardwired to do that naturally. That is a gift. It's not something that I have the best. Well, I'm not the best at it. You are. I can think of people, and then later on, or somebody puts me on the spot, and they're like, "Hey, you should go check out this," or think of this person, and I'm like, "What's that person's name?" Ah, crap. Like I can't put the two together or connect it, and you're gifted in that way, and that is definitely a cool thing to have.
I had a guy, Marcus Collius. I interviewed him a few months back for the podcast. And after the interview was over, he was asking me more questions about, okay, tell me this connecting thing you do and
Yeah.
this introducing. And he started asking me all these questions. Then after I answered him, he's like, Kevin, he said, do you realize? He's like, this is the Holy Spirit working through you. And when he said that, I'm like, You know what? I have studied, I've been a student of Dan Sullivan for a long time. I first heard the term of unique ability over 20 years ago. And and I've studied that. And in fact, I've really focused on becoming as effective as I can at using my own unique ability. But I say this is the first time that anybody ever told me this was the Holy Spirit working through me. And he's like, Kevin, he's like, you're allowing it. And because you're allowing it, it just continues to happen. And when he made that comment to me a few months ago, Neil, a shift really took place because I was like, for one, I was just like, he's right.
Yeah,
And then I was like, well, if this is the Holy Spirit working through me, I'm just going to keep doing what I do because, man, that's a powerhouse right there. You
that's amazing.
know? And a shift took place, and it was almost like, well, I'm just going to trust in that. And so now this chatter of, am I doing the right thing? Or are these people really going to make a connection? Because, that's what I want,
Yeah.
I just get to let all that go and just do my thing, you know. And
Super awesome. I mean, just follow your gift, stick with it, and then others will eventually come alongside of you.
yeah, yeah,
Follow your gift and stick with it.
yeah. So this is really cool that we get to catch up
Yeah.
and kind of get an update on what's
Hmm.
been going on in your life and in your
Yeah.
business over the last 30 years or 30 years, 3 years, 30 years. Where did that come from?
Well, I mean, I've been in business for 30 years. I would have been, 12 just right. No, actually,
Yeah,
I would have
right.
been 30 years ago. But yeah, I don't know, 3 years, 30 years. Doesn't seem like there's too much difference between those two and
Yeah,
ultimately.
right.
Probably a little bit different. So,
Yeah. So why don't we start? Let's
sure.
set a little bit of context here. And let's have you share, what it is that you guys do over at Voltage. What do you guys do? Who do you serve? What inspires you most about the
And
work you
yeah,
guys do?
well, sure. Thank you for asking. In simple terms, we help entrepreneurs build seven-figure businesses using physical products.
Okay.
We build brands, physical product brands, and we're doing that for the last 12 plus years, which is something I've come to love to do and really enjoy the process of building and creating something from nothing, seeing what the possibilities are with that brand, innovating the products and serving a market that loves those and wants to share them and give them to more people and sell them to more. It's always great to see as people, continue to consume or grow in the consumption of those products that they really love what you're doing. And that's a great pat on the back. And the more we can do that, the more, that kind of fulfills for me that, I guess, the hunter killer that's in me that wants to go out and just win and kill things. And so we move through enough brands because once something gets going and it's starting and it's in its optimization and later on it's in, its scale, there's a certain systemization and process and automation that goes into that. And then it doesn't need you every minute of the day.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, now what? Well, let's go build another brand. And so it's been really great to do that. We're now 12 brands deep in our own business. We have at least 40 client brands we support through our business, and we're acquiring brands now. As we're going to be acquiring our first closing on in around end of August to mid of August right now.
Okay.
A pretty good sized deal, pretty good acquisition for the starting block, about $12 million deal.
Mhm.
And so super excited to get that going and take control of that business because they're increasing their market share and they have a wonderful brand and done some really good things. And I really hope we can do some really great things in the next 2 to 3 years as we continue to build that one up. So that's what's happening in business. We got software and other things we're working on too. I don't know how far you want me to go down the rabbit hole. You asked the
Well,
question, how far
yeah,
do I,
talk about the
how
software
far
because that's kind of a shift for you guys.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we used and built internally. It's a platform for brand and product development, which is a little bit unique because out there's disparate connectivity between, say, product research and the marketing and then the analytics. And there's all these kind of different tool sets you have to kind of compile together.
Mhm.
And what we set out to build was a product platform that controlled all of those aspects in kind of one area. And it started with our green light process, which is literally finding a data and product data set that green lights. If it green lights, you go. And using the data from Amazon and our own intelligence data set, we've been able to develop a pipeline of product data that we've been serving inside of our client base for the last 6 years,
Okay.
successfully helping them build seven, eight, nine-figure brands
Nice.
inside of that mechanism. And now we're going to kind of bring it to market. We're going to invert our business model just a little bit, where we have kind of coached and created operators that now help support our business. So I don't have employees. I help train up CEO entrepreneurs who became operators, who built their own companies, and now through partnerships and splitting of profits, they help run our companies and other brands. And so that means I don't have employees, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I got, really, really smart people
Yeah.
around me, which is great because I get to be the dumbest guy in the room now. Guy in the room, Kevin, just be aware of that. You don't have to have all the answers anymore. There are plenty of other people to ask questions to, and not everybody is just staring at you going, "Okay, what's next?"
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is right. And that frees up my hands a little bit to look at some of these other things we've been doing. And one of them was, could we put this software in the market in a large way? And as it happened, another individual, I think you and I were talking about this in the pre-show. I had a guy who is coming on the podcast, and he, asked me a question: "What's the best way two people can find each other for a long-term marriage?" And I said, "Well, when they're not looking for each other." And he's like, "Exactly. When they're not looking for each other, that's when you're kind of running this parallel." I explained it to my girls the other day. You're running this kind of parallel activity, and then somewhere along the line, some decisions are made on both parties, and you just bump into each other. And that moment you bump into each other, you're like, "Wait, there's something here, something more, something possible. I want to investigate that." And usually, when you're not looking, you tend to bump into the right people.
Mhm.
And so as we're bumping along and saying, okay, it's time to move this to market, this is really something we want to do. This is something, that we think is going to be valuable enough that we should do it. And so we don't look and taste and feel like the rest of the market, which is kind of important, right?
Mhm.
It sort of happened that one of the guys I've known for years bumped into me and said, "Hey, what you doing? I'm not really doing any more of this other stuff. I'm selling my home and moving to a condo. We don't really need the money. I don't really need any of this stuff anymore. And I kind of wanted to do something that's purposeful and focused and valued. And well, what are you doing? What are you doing that's, interesting?" And I said, "Well, your timing is very interesting because you're, been a marketing officer. You ran some very large brand campaigns for some really large companies in the direct to consumer market. Have you ever ran a software company?" And he said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I have. I've done it really well." I said, "Okay, let's talk." So, long story short, we've made him a partner in the software company as the chief marketing officer, and we're taking this product out to market. And I'm super excited to see it coming out of its second beta release here soon, from what we use internally to what we'll see as market ready product.
Yeah.
What is a MVP will come out sort of in August. Right now, I believe that's when we're going to have it on market.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool because it sort of inverts our business into more of a service provider with the software that will lead most of the front end of what we're doing. And then we will change back in, from the consulting or anything we've done is kind of going to go backwards, and if you will, in our business model. And we'll focus on really pumping out what I think is going to be world-class and best-in-class software
Yep.
for a platform of product and physical product development. And it's going to be using data sets that I don't see anyone else using right now
Yeah.
until they catch up with us. So we're going to try to beat them to the market and get ahead of it and try to set the tone. And it's a lot to do with AI and product development through AI and product research and really identifying those products that are really in demand that people want. And when you give them to the market, they start to take more of them from you.
Yeah.
And we've been able to repeat that process enough that we see that it works really well. And I'm
Yep.
excited to get that in the market. So it's going to kind of pivot us. We'll end up with what we're going to call cohorts later on, which are kind of 12-week sprints through our product pipeline and
Okay.
playbook that moves, but out of the consulting world,
Hmm.
out of that
Hmm.
part of the business, and really just internalized to our own brands, working on our own growth and brand portfolio, and then just supporting the software component of that through our product partnerships later on. Those who might want to partner with us in an equity position
Yep.
may have an opportunity to do that later. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really kind of changed things on its head this year.
So you've been talking about some of your partners. What is, and I'm sure you can come up with a lot of, examples or answers to this question, but what is a result? And you don't necessarily have to share names of people or companies, but what is an example of a result that you guys have helped one of your partners get that you guys are just incredibly proud of, Neil?
I'll give you a recent one
Okay.
because, in the past is cool. We've got people who did really great things in the past, and past for us is like 5 years ago. We got a brand that we helped create through one of our clients about, well, he's in 5 years now. He's closing in on 20 million a year, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
He's certainly north of 15 million a year in around 5 years. And that's a brand that started from scratch around the dinner table. working on our processes and coaching with Reed, predominantly my business partner, to go through that product ideation process and really choose a brand and an affinity level product that has really driven a huge amount of opportunity for
Yeah.
him and his family. He's got 5 kids, and that brand really took off really great. Most recently, we have a brand that is only less than 60 days old,
Okay.
and I just see today because it's Amazon Prime Day, first of the four this year
Yeah,
for Amazon
this
Prime.
is cool that we're talking on Amazon
We're
Prime Day.
talking on
Huh?
Amazon Prime Day, July 8th, first time in 2025. There's a 4-day window now, but his first day so far, as I saw, he broke 10,000 in sales and before noon this morning in
Nice.
that brand new brand that's less than 60 days old.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that was a super exciting. Got a second brand, which it's a really cool home product that we solicited a government to get registration for because of the kind of product it is, and the government did certify and register it for us. It took about 2 months longer, but we
Okay.
can now say that this government had certified this particular type of material we wanted for it, and now we are the only, well, second brand on Amazon that has that certified material.
Okay.
And I saw a minute ago they're closing in on 5 figures. It's about 4 in the afternoon. And that we relaunched that brand with a whole set of new inventory because we ran out faster during our test than we thought we would. We ran out extremely fast. And so for about 90 days, less than 90 days, it took us to get the full manufacturing, multiple containers and everything going. And finally checked in June, 1st of June, and we broke about 60,000 in sales right at the end of June. And we're probably set to double that by July. And he's really on his way for these next 4 days, as he's
Yeah.
already breaking 5 figures in one day in sales.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah. Home goods, products, outdoor gears, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it matters that the product green lights and there is a customer need already for it, a customer demand that already exists, and a particular brand type that is in the market already that has some demand for that market share that I believe we can knock off because there's not a secondary brand in that space. And somewhere down below the gap is all the cheap Chinese crap, the CCCP we refer to it as, where we look like we know there's a gap, and the product profitability no side shows us that we could become the second brand in the marketplace for it. I know it sounds weird to some people's brain, but we pull a NASCAR, so we'll come in and draft off the first brand, and if it takes us 2 to 3 or 4 years, or even 5 years to become the number one brand in that spot, that's fine. We're going to draft off of them as we build that market share and credibility, and gives us an opportunity for longevity at the higher end brand. So we're selling products $100 to $500 in retail price point.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
So drafting that market leader,
Yeah.
then it and the goal is to then become the market leader. Is
The
that
goal is to poke them, prod them, piss them off until they either give up or buy us out
gotcha? Okay.
in
Okay.
5 years. Goal is to get that to a position where the company has an equitable net profit of at least more than $1 million in EBITDA, at which
Okay.
point we might sell it or grow it into omnichannel, take it out to different locations, Shopify or retail, TikTok, wherever else we can open new sales channels beyond Amazon, always, in order to create a holistic business model and poke them. Maybe ask them if they're willing to buy us. If not, we may sell to somebody else.
Yeah.
But you do
Yeah.
that long enough, you find out they want to know who you are. And we've
Uh-huh.
been solicited before.
Uh-huh.
When you poke them enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Wow.
reverse, we might end up buying them. Who knows? Yep.
So who's your who's your guys' ideal client? I mean, who are they, and how do they find out about you guys, Neil?
They're typically not existing sellers.
Okay.
I know
Okay.
everybody tries to say anything around the Amazon and FBA market. Usually, for those who may be listening, don't know this, but it's all about, growth hacks and what you can do to maximize your sales and optimize this and all this other great stuff. And there's a lot of information on that, frankly, at the end of the day. But mostly people get the beginning wrong. They don't take long enough to sharpen the axe before they start cutting the tree. We
Mhm.
take a good amount of time to understand the data, understand what customer Amazon intent data is telling us. I now know exactly what the customer needs are on Amazon. It's literally like I posted on this on my Facebook the other day. For those who are listening, you can go check out my Facebook if you want. But it was like, Jeff Bezos pulling up in his black van with all his security personnel and popping out and coming up to your house, and Golden Book opens up and says, "Here, sell this." And then, leaves. This is what you have to sell. This is the best selling things on the platform. I have that list now. I can tell you exactly the top selling products on Amazon based on customer need and intent. And with that data, I have a pipeline of over 1,000 product types that I can run into multiple brands that are the customer need and intent of the products that drive the most sales and most demand on Amazon.
Okay.
And with that, I can now see exactly which are the green light products, the ones that are profitable above a certain point that I want to see. And so when I get that particular data, I have more product and data than I can do in a lifetime. And what I'm looking for is people who want to, be in that position, who have thought, and maybe they're aspiring entrepreneurs and they want to learn how to build under a process that's proven, its longevity, it's building into operations. I even put some skin in the game to work with them to get that success because, as I mentioned earlier, my operators are the ones who run my businesses. So if I train them up in success to their business, my goal is twofold. One, they may operate a business that is a brand that we created in which they become an operator of, or two, I might buy them out,
Hmm.
right? In 3, 4, 5 years, their brand gets successful. I'm the first person to come to and say, hey, I'm looking to acquire that brand. And
Yeah.
if I know how they operate it and I know where they're going, I usually know that certain levels of skill set or capitalization is all that's required to expand that brand beyond their current limitations or thought processes or windows of, opportunity. And we can usually get above that. And so we look to acquire them. So I have a couple of reasons why I get involved with individuals, and it's
Yeah.
application only. So they're usually aspiring entrepreneurs who are high income, or they're going out to do other business revenue streams, or they're like, hey, I got capital, but I don't want to throw it into Wall Street. I'd like to take it out and put it to use. Or they may be looking at franchises or other considerations. They understand that if I put 100,000 into a business in year one, that's just a good starting block. They know that if I'm going to run a business to 7 or 8 figures, that it's going to cost me that much in 5 years to do it because they're savvy enough. They may not understand e-com or the technicalities of running an e-com business,
Sure.
but they understand enough about the fundamentals of business that they realize when someone's telling them that they can build a 8 figure business for $5,000, that somebody's BSing somebody somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so they're pretty savvy in that way. And those
Yeah.
are usually the kind of individuals I end up speaking with.
Hmm. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So now that we've got some context set here,
Mm,
I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners.
sure.
So, Neil, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business in such a powerful way that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah. There are persons that
Okay.
I'll mention to give credit where credit's due, I suppose. First is Jesus. In my world, it's Yeshua. There without that grace, without that confidence that I was given as I became a not just a Christian who kind of understood what it meant, what Jesus did, but an actual Christian who realized what it meant to see that sacrifice occur for me and then be willing to say, I want to be discipled and I also want to disciple, which is very different, I think, than most Christians, I guess. I don't know. I'm not trying to judge anybody. This is just me. But what it meant for me was, what I needed to do in life and who I needed to do it with and what I was willing to do and not do changed very dramatically as the person in me changed when I accepted that gift. You know, it's very easy in this kind of business, in this kind of lifestyle to end up with arrogant, prideful, attitudes about look at me, look what I did, I'm so great, blah, blah, blah. And that's something I struggle with, pride and vanity. So I have to always make sure that I put that in check. And with Jesus' help, then I've been able to do that. I've been able to work under faith, with very difficult things in my life. I've lived multiple times at 49, I like to say, mainly because there was the guy who was living to 19, and then there was the guy who got married and divorced by the time he was 26. That was my second life. And then there was a guy who met the love of his life at 30 and now lives a completely different life than those two guys. And so I'm in my third life, if you will. Very different, all of them. And I don't know that everybody gets to experience that. And because of that, I've had a very different faith walk in what I've struggled through. Struggled through bankruptcy. I've struggled through, barely living out of my car in a suitcase because I didn't have a home. I've lived, as somebody who tried to figure out life and did it the hard way, so made things very difficult for myself. I've learned to be a terrible husband and what that actually means, to be the person that you are selfless in a relationship for, that you die to yourself, and I did not, and so I got into a marriage where two very selfish, vain people ended up destroying each other. So that was not so much fun. And then I've been the guy who thought I'd have great success and did, and then in the process of that, sort of betrayed myself through my arrogance and ended up bankrupt. And that was a tough process, especially with a wife and three little children and one on the way. That was pretty hard to deal with and come to that, reality and come back out of that confidence killing moment and try to reestablish who I was and try to establish all the things that I knew I wasn't, but the world was telling me. The old joke, I don't know who said it. It was something about, get go bankrupt and you find out who your real friends are. Maybe it was Trump. I don't know who quoted that. Somehow that comes to mind. There's no more truth than that. I've reinvented myself through both challenges in marriage. You find out who becomes your family, who stays your family, who your friends are, and how much they want to deal with you.
Yeah.
Divorce is a very difficult way to figure that out. I don't recommend it, really. Bankruptcy is another way to figure out who is your ride or die, who sticks with you, who you think you could trust, and who you think will be there for you, and then who shows up that you never expected.
Yeah.
And then all the ones you want to make, say you were stupid, an idiot, and this was the dumbest thing you could have ever done. How could you be so stupid? And why aren't you going back and getting a job? And why do you think this is going to work? And why aren't you, why are you so dumb you can't figure this out?
Yeah.
Like, haven't you learned anything, and having to persevere through that. So with that faith and that really just learning to get out of the boat, even though I wasn't totally confident I would walk on the water, at least I know if I kept swimming, that if I kept my eyes on Jesus, that it would work out. And with that, I'm just swimming. I'm treading water through life, which I appreciate. Everybody's like, that may not make sense to your ears, but ultimately I'm treading life as a marathon all the way until I die. And that's kind of the way I see it. It's faith. So as a person for me that became not only just real, but became one of the only relationships that I had when everybody else left.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've
Wow.
been there where there's been nobody, right? And, there's some loneliness in there and sadness. There was a moment where I thought life was not worth living anymore. I know that's a story that a few people tell. Mine was, a very sad, pathetic person who thought that nobody loved him and that there was no opportunity for him anymore and the world would be a better place without him. Sounds cliche, but that's exactly what I convinced myself of
Yeah.
and thought that, wrecking my car at 150 miles an hour would be a painless way to end it all. And I tried. And there was a person who showed up in that moment and said, "You're worth more than that. Don't do this." And I powered the car down. And thankfully, I didn't do what I was intending to do there. Because life would be very different for me now and all these beautiful girls that he's blessed me with. Yeah, I was a young man. I used to pray for beautiful women, Kevin, all the time. God, send me beautiful women. And he has a pretty good sense of humor. Because he did. He did. Just not in my timeline. In his timeline. Now all I have is women in my life. Lots of very beautiful women all around me. So, yeah,
Yes.
your
Yes.
prayers do get answered, just not necessarily when you think or how you think they're going to be answered.
Now I'm trying to wonder if I prayed for the same thing because that's what I got in my life
Oh,
too.
that's what I got.
I've got six. I've got
And
four
lots of beautiful
daughters.
women to me, Lord, and now they live with me
Yeah.
all around, all the time. So God was, and he showed up in a big way when the rest of the world had left me alone. Jesus was there to remind me that I was worth something and pulled me out of that situation. I could never be more indebted to that relationship, and he will always have my loyalty to the very end.
Yeah.
The second person was my uncle.
Okay.
My uncle who I'm going to call him my rich dad just to borrow a context I think some
Okay.
people would understand.
Yeah.
My father's still alive and a very good man, hardworking son of a gun, old Navy guy, tough as nails, 883. He lives on the hilltop up just from us up here. I got to go see him here in a little bit. And just a lovely man, right? Not the guy that I grew up with, the one I know now. The guy I grew up with is tough as nails, son of a gun, suck it up, buttercup, get it done, Navy guy. But, have a bunch of women around you, and guess what happens to old men? They soften up pretty good, right?
Mhm.
So he softened up into a pretty cool guy. And I get to spend a lot of time with him. But he dropped out of school when he was 17, out of high school, and ended up driving truck with his brother for a while before he entered the Navy. He entered the Navy underage in order and went to two tours in Vietnam and worked on a destroyer, which is a very, very cool dude. But life he provided. He did wonderful things, worked tough shifts, was there, supported us. and just everything you could expect really for what a father should show up and do. He just didn't have any business sense, really. He didn't do the finances my mom does, and now I help with that a lot now because of their older age. And he didn't know money. I didn't understand finances, and I like to joke with people that money was a four-letter word in my house. We didn't say it. It was disrespectful to dad for what he could provide. So along comes a man who, as in my younger years, I didn't recognize who he was as a person until I got to be a teenager, and then my uncle kind of became somebody to me, if you will, and kind of understood a little bit more about his savviness in business and his desire and go-getting and the way he thought about things and his relationships and tenacious and building a company out of San Diego to build boats and trimarans and just an all-around cool guy who just really opened my mind to thought and process. And as he got farther in business, he had conversations with me and introduced me to people that I didn't even realize who they were until I see them on the world stage now. And I'm like, oh, okay, those are those people. I just didn't know who they were, didn't know what to do with them when I got introduced, didn't know what kind of conversations to have, never even really knew what to say because I wasn't savvy enough. But I got to listen and be a part of that. And he really shaped my idea of abundance and the world and what it means to be in, conversation with people and relationship and what business and finance and money could do and how it acted like a tool and just many things and control the controllables and things you should know and understand about what you can do and create and what you can't create and what you can't control. And so many of those things have shaped over the last 20 years. He passed away in 2005. He was a all out kind of guy. He did nothing halfway. If he was going to go snowboarding, he was going down the fastest chute down the black run he'd go until he'd break himself. He'd dive out of planes. He'd fly out to sea. He'd run individual runs between Hawaii and San Diego on a boat. He just did life at its fullest and its most extreme. It caught up with him. Unfortunately, he died in an ultralight aircraft incident in Wyoming in 2005. And, I'd had a few conversations before that with him, and it was very enlightening and very, as I was getting into business deeper, I was in IBM at that point, and I was understanding more about the topics of business and things as I was expanding my understanding. But he had always encouraged me, get out, do your own thing. And what I realized, and I told this to my girls the other day, is that he was telling me to go get a franchise during part of those conversations. Like, if you don't know what to do in business, go buy a franchise. They will teach you how to run it. They'll teach you about the finances. They'll teach you about the business and the sales and the marketing. And totally get that now. Didn't get that risk level when I was there. Also didn't understand that if I had taken the tenacious moment to do it, if I had strapped on my boots and went out there and started to figure it out and make an effort to get it done, find a franchise, even try to borrow money to get into it, he would have helped me. I just didn't realize it. I didn't understand that that's what he was testing me for. And I do that to people now as an inherent, part of my business model. I just didn't understand he was doing that to me. And I told my daughters the other day, he goes, I probably could have had a, 30 franchise business model running later on if I just had taken that opportunity. I just didn't understand. It wasn't the right time to get that knowledge. I heard it. I retained it. I just didn't know what to do with it. And I reminded them there's a lot of that stuff you're getting from me now that in 10 or 20 years, I expect you to go, that's what dad was talking about.
Yeah.
So be paying attention, right?
Yeah.
And he was somebody that really shaped and impacted my life. And 2 years later, after his death, because of the time that he died and just really lamenting over the fact that I didn't, think and do and take any action, when that time came in 2007 and IBM said, you could move to a different division or take early retirement, two parallel paths crashed into each other. And I said, I'm out. That's
Mhm.
the end. I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't buy a franchise. Maybe I should have. But I just jumped out and I said, that's it. I'm done. And it was thanks to him that I made that jump. His inspiration, his belief that I could always do it, even though he didn't know what I was going to do, wasn't really the point. It was just his belief that I could do it
Yeah.
and that I would figure it out and that I would be resilient in figuring it and tenacious and persevere through it. And he knew more about that than I did. He could
Yeah.
see it in me. I just
Yeah.
didn't see it in myself at that point. And, that was 18 years ago
Yeah.
since I left. And can't see any other way of doing it differently. And he was the reason why I did it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Do you consider what you do kind of like a franchise model?
Somebody asked me that question the other day, and the answer is yes, with an asterisk. Because I don't take equity in the business that they start with me and that I mentor them on for 12 months to get it off the ground and shoot for seven figures. I take the interest after the business can be acquired. So my interest is in getting them to a position of becoming and finding out how well of a CEO operator they are, how tenacious and resilient and perseverant they are, and they think they are before they start, and then how they are in the process and during the process and years later.
Reveals.
And yep, it totally reveals itself. And as I've found, I have four very, very strong operators right now who over 2, 3, 4+ years have proven themselves to be those right providers. And we did a cultural index the other day, if you're familiar with that at all. And I've done disc assessments on everybody that comes through. I may even start doing some cultural assessments. The cultural index is very fascinating, but it basically, define where they are as people, and they all sort of fit in a similar sphere, and it completely makes sense now why they do. They fit into that sphere because of who they are, the way the operations works, the data, the business, and the kind of model it is. It is just perfect for their brain. It's perfect for their person. It just fits, and that's why they've had so much success. And it makes a lot of sense to me that they did. And when we saw that, it's kind of like, ding, that's it. Now I can put a name to it. I can sort of see it. It makes sense. I got it. But now I can sort of put something to it. So yes, there is an aspect to these kinds of business models that has franchise-like aspect to it, but I don't take any ownership or whatnot. But I do help them understand exactly how to market and deliver a physical product that the market wants, and then to provide more of that business knowledge and experience to get them past the learning and into the growth stage. And then to help mentor them past growth they don't understand yet, making your first 5 figures in a day, a lot of people's brains explode.
Yeah.
And because they've never done it or seen it, to them, they think that this is it. And I'm like, no, you're just getting started. We
Just
haven't
getting
hit scale
started.
yet.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
wait till you see what scale looks like. When you're making more in a month or even than you made in a day,
Yeah.
that's when things really start to break in your brain, and you really have to start changing your worldview. You
Yeah.
really have to start thinking, I am in abundance now. What am I going to do with that? How am I going to lead that? How am I going to protect that? How am I going to get others involved besides just myself? Right? How, we have a phrase in the part of that business that's keep it all and keep it small. That's the ownership.
Hmm.
But when it comes to giving and receiving and blessing and doing all that, you've got to be in abundance. You
Yeah.
got to be willing to give it all out, right?
Yeah.
And we give everything to every person that works with us. And that's why I keep it very small, because we invest a lot in trying to get these people to success,
Yeah.
and hopefully get out of their own way in doing it. But no, not in like a traditional franchise, but in a very interest way that when they come forward in that business, I want to acquire it. So they know that we're both the beginning, the middle of the growth, and we're going to stick around until we see a potential exit with that business.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I'll tell you, just having my own experiences with this kind of thing, when people realize that we're just all in on them
All in.
too, and that we're committed and that I mean, that makes such a difference. And like, there's a lot of companies do not operate that way.
No, they don't, and it's so easy in the world. A old partner who ended up being kind of a shyster, and I see it now that I say it out loud. He said, online you can be the Queen of England if you want. Nobody will know, right? And I jokingly tell my daughters, to some degree, I'm joking because I'm always in protection mode. That be careful who you think you're meeting online. That guy might be some weirdo, some middle-aged weirdo who's just trying to get you online. And it's not everybody's like that, but that's definitely happening. It's definitely out there, and it's like they put on a certain persona and they make you believe one thing when in actuality they're just trying to get you for another. And I think one of the ways that I've tried to dispel that in my business is by leading through the things that we actually do, right? We actually do the business. I know a lot of people try to say that, but for those that are behind my NDA, I show them exactly all the businesses, where the products are. Every week we talk about how are things going and what's going on, and I'm in full transparency with them. I can't be in full transparency with the entire world, because there are bad people out there,
Sure.
Kevin.
Yeah.
And they want to do dumb things for bad reasons, and
Right.
that's just because.
Yeah.
And I really don't want that in my, house. I try to
Yeah.
avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just saw two notes. One of our brands just went over 20K today. The next one's coming up on 10K, and one more is closing in on 8K. I just got 3 notices from our
That is
operations.
so awesome, man.
Isn't that cool, dude? That's so cool. Those guys are just really crushing it over there. The teams, the partners in those businesses are super happy with what's going on. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just want to make sure that you do your diligence.
Yeah.
right? I always test everybody to test everything. If you don't know what I'm about, if you don't understand what my brand is, check my network, check my connections, check people I'm connected to. Do your due diligence.
Yeah.
Watch my podcast, watch the videos, get comfortable, ask the difficult questions.
Yeah.
What you won't have is the time to show up and make me convince you that you should work with me.
Yeah.
I'll end the call or it'll never begin. I think most people think that everybody wants them to work with them because they have the money. And the answer is, well, I don't need your money. I need your attention.
Yeah.
I need your
Yeah.
focus. I need your drive. I need your tenacity. I need your resilience. I need your ability to overcome decisions because if you can get out of your own way, we can do a lot of fun things together.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fun to be had in these businesses. And I got so many products. And the thing about the products, Kevin, that most people don't get is it's an evergreen business model. People think, well, it was Amazon and that was 5 years ago. No, it's physical products. That's 50 years into the future.
Mhm.
Physical products and brands live forever. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever, are you a smoker?
I
I don't want to
used
call
to be for 28 years.
That's right. I remember that. Okay, okay. So you would have a specific brand or even a specific brand within a product type that you would love to smoke, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are certain ones you probably know about that you never touched. Like maybe you never smoked Lucky Brands,
Totally.
right? But you know Lucky Strikes,
Yeah.
right? But you maybe never consumed their product. Well, how many times can you say that about a brand in the world where you know the brand, but you've never consumed the product?
Sure.
So brands live on forever. And
Yeah.
with brands living on forever, products will live through those brands forever. It's the second oldest profession in the world, behind OnlyFans now, I think. Um, or the version of OnlyFans, as we call it, online prostitution.
Yes.
Um, Physical products are never going to end.
Yeah.
So, platforms change, strategies adapt,
Mhm.
systems change, automation changes, AI is changing a lot of things, but many of these things are not going to go away. At the end of the day, physical products are going to always be in demand. Someone always is going to need a product, no matter what the cost of that product. You may yell that gas prices cost more, but guess what? Did you stop
You're going to
buying gas?
keep putting it in your vehicle.
That's right. You may yell that chicken costs a little more than it did last year. Guess what? You're still buying chicken.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't sell those products, but you get my point.
Yeah.
My point is, we build brands because they can live on forever.
Yeah.
Right? If I build that brand and I get that market going, someone may take it over later. I may sell it. I may keep it for whatever. But those products are not the point, and I try to get people's understanding here that products aren't the point. It's the brand.
Yeah.
Products have a life cycle. They fulfill a position in the market. They fulfill a time frame. They have a purpose. But products will change, and you
Yeah.
must adapt those products. But the brands can go on for generations.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I really want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today. And you know what? I also want to thank you for jumping out of that plane with me 3 years ago too when we launched this
Very glad we
podcast.
did.
You know,
Very glad we did.
and because my gosh, so many amazing things have come from that. You know,
Cool.
and
So cool. I'm glad and honored to just be a small part of it, Kevin.
yeah,
And
yeah,
thank you for that.
and so for anybody listening to this right now, going,
Mm.
man, Kev. I really like Neil. I really like who he is and how he shows up and maybe I am someone who would like to find out more about what Neil's doing or somebody's coming to mind for me that I think might be a right fit for
Mhm.
Neil. Maybe they got a relative, a family member, or somebody else that they know that
Yeah.
like, you know, um and I also know you got a new book coming out. You got a new book that came
Yeah.
out too. And
It came
so
out. It's on Amazon over there. Uh-huh.
yep. And so let's talk about any resources, any websites that
Sure.
we can share and all that too.
Yeah,
So
it's called Almost Automated Income with FBA. Surprise, 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 right? The systems of that platform have done so well for us because of its automations and its back end and its delivery, and you get stuff on Amazon, right? So many people who are probably listening to this do get things from Amazon. I just use it as a tool to get that product to that customer. So it's been a great tool, and there's a lot of automation with that. So I wrote about that strategy in this book. The strategy, the as seen on TV strategy, Kevin Harrington wrote the forward for me. He's been a good friend. We did a presentation that people can check out at my website, voltagedm.com,
okay.
where you can read, go through that presentation, understand the strategy. And if you want to read a book, if you're a reader, grab a copy of that book. It is the strategy by which we create these businesses repeatedly and grow them through scale to exit, and then put them in an acquisitions model. And you guys can, check that out if that's of interest to you. Building something of real value, building a real sustainable, growing system is very important to me, and that's kind of what's in the book, and that's what you'll see in the presentation. And if you feel so inclined to apply, then when you apply, you'll speak to me. I speak to
Yep.
every person, and it's an application only. You may find I say no because it may not be the right time, and it's a KNOW. It's not always a hell no. It's a KNOW.
Mhm.
It just would be the right time for either of us, and that's okay too. I'm
Yep.
really just looking for those who are serious about building a physical product business, who see the opportunities that it could create for themselves. Generational time and wealth freedom is something that's created for me. I don't know if everybody knows this, but I do live with my family. We homeschool them. I have four daughters and my wife. We live on about 50, soon to be 65 acres. We just put an option on a house with my in-laws up the hill with some additional acreage, and they're closing on that here by the next 30 days. So my parents and my family and our family are all now on the acreage we have out here, which is
Wow.
amazing. We homeschool them and then training them up to be a part of the business in some way. I've got my two oldest daughters building marketing videos using AI technologies for our marketing campaigns, and so they've been doing really great with that, teaching them the business of that, which is fun. And just a little bit about me. I'm a dad. I'm a conservative guy by nature, but I always like every opinion, and we'll listen to it as long as it doesn't infringe on my rights. You can have your rights too.
Yep.
But yeah, check me out on the webs. Check out my Facebook posts. I don't hold back on who I am in the public square, and if that matches with you or resonates whatsoever, then of course we'll have a conversation and see
Yeah.
where it takes us.
Yeah. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap, Neil?
I think I just try to always remind people when I have this opportunity, two major things that have been important for my walk in life. Uh, and that is to see that your opportunity begins at the end of your excuses.
Hmm.
And when you stop making excuses for everything, whether you have finances and don't feel like they're there, be resourceful if you don't have the resources. If you don't have the time, then make the time for things that are valuable. If you feel like you don't have the time because of all those commitments, I would always challenge everyone to realize that time is just a construct that you can change.
That's right.
You can change it. We all have different times, we have different priorities. So, actually, what people usually don't say is it's just not a priority. You're simply not prioritizing things to make time for others. And one of the things I would not look at is my family and say, you are not a priority.
That's right.
Okay. People lie to themselves by saying, I don't have the time. Sorry, honey, I don't have the time. Sorry, I don't have the time. I don't have the time. We can't do that. I don't have the time. In actuality, if you could stare them in the face and look at them and say, you're not a priority, and see how well that hits, you might actually start changing the way you think,
Yeah.
right? The
Amen.
last part of that is just to remember that imperfect action will beat it every day of the week, and something perfect will happen along the way.
Yeah.
It's the old fail forward methodology of taking some imperfect action and not expecting that there's a perfect guaranteed process for anything you do.
Yep.
There is just resilience and perseverance in solving business problems that others are not willing to solve, and then to continue that process until success.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, Neil, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you. And I'm excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad to not be the last podcast. I was
Yeah,
grateful to
right.
be the first one, but I'm not the last.
That's right. That's right.
Thanks,
Well,
Kevin.
thanks again, Neil.
My pleasure.